KillScale. This is the latest version as of Christmas Eve 2019, and just want to give an overview of how to use this tool for 40K. It's at www.killscale.com. And first we're going to pick some select attacking units. As you can see, this is quite a small list. Normally what you would have to do is add your own attacking unit, but just to get introduced, I'm going to start off by using some default attackers that I have in here. These were created because I have a Crimson Fist force, and I just wanted to focus on the Crimson Fists. So these are my attacking units. Now, you know, like a Contemptor Mortis has more than just 2 twin heavy bolters as an option, but if I go and uncheck this hide unchecked weapons under options, I can then change his loadout and get much more going for it. The same with the intercessors and the invictors. And so what we have here is the kill scale. So one intercessor shooting at a chapterless tactical marine with the stalker bolt rifle, we get these numbers. I'm sorry, my dogs are barking. Family visiting, the holidays. I guess that is just the reality of the holidays. All right, so what does the kill scale mean? Under show help, I have a description of what it means. So what we're doing is we're not coming to averages. Like normally when you use this, when you do your calculations in a spreadsheet, you're getting an average of like how many Space Marines are dead and how many Plague Bearers are slain. What I'm doing is I'm actually running simulations with die rolls. I'm actually doing it 3,000 times. 2,000 is actually enough when studying standard deviation in general, but 3,000 didn't really slow the process down at all. And then I trim the outcomes to more than 2 to be just within 2 standard deviations removed from the mean. So after I simulate this 3,000 times, I sort the list of outcomes and remove everything that's outside of 2 standard deviations. So what ends up happening though is that beyond 2 standard deviations is less than 5% of outcomes, and those are very much edge cases. Like when you roll nothing but 1s or nothing but 6s, they are pretty uncommon. And I wanted to see what you could realistically expect from an attacking interaction. So that is why I keep it within 2 standard deviations. So the remaining of the result set is 95% of the results. And so this first score on the left is the absolute worst outcome within that 95%. And then, so that's the worst outcome, and this is the best outcome here on the far right. The middle outcome is the actual mean of the set. And then these second numbers, 2 and 4th integer, that is, this one is the entire set below the mean. This is the mean of that. And the entire set above the mean, this is the mean of that. So between 2 and 4th integer is going to be 50% or more of all the outcomes. This will represent the mean outcome, but it should tightly correlate to an average outcome. So if something is predicted to kill 1.3 Space Marines, you would see something like a 1 or a 2 here, representing the mean. And then this is the left edge of what is very likely, and this is the right edge of what is very likely. So if we add a lot more intercessors, we get more information that you can actually interact with. If you have 10 intercessors shooting at a chapterless tactical marine, you could typically expect 4 dead tactical marines. As many as 7 is a realistic potential, and as few as 1. Now, sometimes it's better to count dead models or to count total wounds. So total wounds is very useful, for example, if you're targeting knights or a rhino even, as opposed to, 1 wound models. Because I developed this originally for my Crimson Fist, there is quite a bit more developed for reflecting Space Marine rules. So we have like Devastator Doctrine, Imperial Fist +1 damage against vehicles. And so what you'll see, sometimes you can, for example, they're on the Stalker bolt rifle. That's a heavy weapon, but if you choose also to activate tactical, you might see some numbers change, but they shouldn't change significantly, because what we do is we just re-roll the 2,000 or 3,000 simulations. And while the tactical doctrine has no impact on the Stalker bolt rifle, it does get, the set gets regenerated. So you can see the numbers shift a little bit, but it should be fairly minuscule. So what you can see here is the points per damage unit. So with 10 intercessors, this is very much a rounding. It's approximate. And that's reflected because it's not even, you know, intercessors are 17 points a model. 10 intercessors killing or causing 10 wounds on 10 chapterless tactical marines should be about 17 points a model. But in this case, it came to 15.74. Now, as you take away your AP values, the chapterless tactical marines do quite a bit. But as we go back into tactical doctrine with an auto boat rifle, the production inches back up again. So this 17, this number here below the kill scale, this is an approximation of the points it took to do 10 whatevers, either 10 wounds or 10 dead models. The same for the Invictors. Took 21 points per model, or 21 points per each one dead chapterless tactical marine. And I'm not changing the points of the attackers based on their loadout. So that's very much rounding. In time, that might come, but it wasn't really a big emphasis of mine. Here, this number represents what is the standard variation or the standard deviation of the set. So 3, 5, 6, 8, 10. What is one standard deviation is 1.9. How that's important to you is not necessarily seeing like a 6 or a 5 here, but you should know if you see a 6 or a 5, your results are going to have huge swings. The smaller the number this is, the more reliable it is, the more the production and the outcome of the attack will be anticipatable. As this number grows, things get more random. This can be very influential in that you would optimally choose to attack with the high variation models first. So like this is 2.9. You could have a great outcome shooting with them, or you could have a very mediocre outcome shooting with them because their variation is greater than the 1.9 of the Invictor. So that means the Invictor is more predictable. I compare it to NFL football. If you run, the outcome is more predictable, and if you pass, the outcome is less predictable. However, you want to go with your high variation attacking units first, because depending on the outcome of the high variation, you can clean up their mess or further capitalize with your low variation in the next step. So as we add more Invictors, the variation is going to change, just because now you have like 3 times as many random elements going on. So we have 30 intercessors. So the variation increases with the size of the number of attackers, which shouldn't surprise you, but you can see here with a pretty realistic list where you have like a battalion, or I should say a brigade of intercessors and 3 Invictors in your elite slot. Your Invictors are still less variation than your 30 intercessors. Contemptor Mortis, especially with the twin heavy bolters. And we're using, like, the intercessors over here are benefiting from exploding 6s on the bolters. The Invictors only have a heavy bolter that benefits from that. And we're shooting chapterless tactical marines. I don't think the intercessors would benefit from a +1 to hit, but the Invictors might. And keep in mind, when you see the Contemptor Mortis, its numbers change. In this case, I've just assumed chapterless tactical marines have usually like 5 models in a unit. But this changed, but it's very slight. This went from 8 to 9, and this went from 10 to 11. Or, yes. However, that just reflects the fact that it was recalculated. When we do it 3,000 times, you just get slightly different outcomes. And this is the rightmost edge, so I wouldn't worry too much about a +1 to hit when a Contemptor Mortis is actually unlikely to experience it significantly changing these numbers. Maybe if the mean changed, that would mean something more. All right, so that is interacting with attackers that are previously added to the system. So, for example, when you show the default Space Marine attackers, you could bring up this list. However, this isn't really just meant just for Space Marines, and I didn't want to burden non-Space Marine players with having to always see Space Marine units in this interface, so I hid it behind this checkbox. I'm going to hide the help, and going to stop showing the options. Let's show one option, hide unchecked units, or unchecked weapons. Okay, so we don't want to just shoot chapterless tactical marines, so let's add some targets. So to add my own targets, click that button, and let's say we want to shoot guardians. And let's say these guardians are weird. They have a 6-up, feel no pain. They don't have an invuln. I think they have a 3-up armor save, and their toughness 3. Wounds per model, unusual. They'll come in units of 9 or 10. I guess it's 10 if they have the heavy weapon platform. And as you can see, this is somewhat limited in that I don't include something like a heavy weapon platform yet. A heavy weapon platform would change the toughness, and it would have an armor save of 2, which would make attacking this unit different. All right, save that target. And let's go through and select them. So we want shoot it. We're not going to shoot at Plague Bearers and Guardians at the same time, but we could hypothetically. Let's just shoot at Guardians. And we'll shoot at Intercessors. I guess let's take a walk through a variety of troop level units. We'll add some Orcs. I will say that sometimes when you add more factions to your target list, you will have to reselect the targets. Anyway, so we added Guardians, and we also had some pre-established targets in our queue. And you can see when you have 30 Intercessors shooting with auto boat rifles, they actually do a number on Bloodletters, partially because they just go straight through that invuln. And if I recall, we were also in Tactical, and I think Bloodletters do have an armor save. But their armor save is, I guess, not much better than their invuln save is. I don't actually recall off the top of my head. And so we could see, a good list and see what is, I don't know, more desirable for shooting at different things. But instead of shooting at troops and stuff like that, let's shoot at a rhino and get an estimate for the production of a rhino. And back in show options, we are counting dead models. So with 30 Intercessors, you could reasonably expect to kill 1 rhino. 3 Invictors could do the same. 1 Contemptor Mortis might not actually kill a rhino, but if we are in Devastator Doctrine and we're in the Imperial Fist Super Heavy, the chances then go up significantly that you'll actually kill a rhino. So let's count total wounds. This is especially useful against knights. See, you can reasonably expect to do 8 total wounds from 1 Contemptor Mortis. Invictors, with 3 Invictors, you could do 28. With 30 Intercessors shooting with auto bolt rifles, you could expect to do 10. But let's go back to select some options. Here we are. We're going to use Stalker bolt rifles. Now the Stalker bolt rifle, it's totally just annihilating a vehicle, especially with the Imperial Fist Special Super Doctrine. Okay, so that is adding a target, add your own target. It shows up in this list. You then select targets that you've added. Now we go to select attacking units. Here you can add your weapon profiles. I'm trying to highlight it for you. And there's also add your own attacking unit. Now it's important that you add weapon profiles before you add attacking units. So here we will have a missile launcher, which is type heavy. It only shoots one. Is AP minus 2? Yeah, 2. Strength 8. Actually, I'm not sure if that's minus 2 off the top of my head. I might be mistaken. It's D6 damage. And now there are weapons that have different values from D6, D3, and 0 through 9. Like there's poison. This does not yet account for poison, but this will be getting updated over time. At some point, for example, I'll do a big Tyranid focus where I try to make sure I account for special rules involving Tyranids, and then a big Eldar focus, and so on. This does not get any special rerolls. Save weapon. All right, so here, for your convenience, I have a little list of the weapon profiles that you've already added. So then we can go add your own attacking unit, and we're just going to represent a single Devastator with an L. He is 3/3. There's usually 5 models in a unit. But this doesn't mean you're shooting 5 times. In this case, this is like going to see if you're targeting, say, plague bearers that are usually in like groups of 20 or more, would a Crimson Fist benefit from it? So it's a pretty specific niche need. This guy's points, I think, are 33 points. And this is for estimating the points per wound cause. All right, so there is a little bug, but after you save the attacker, you can just refresh. And here under select attacking units, you have the Devastator with missile launcher. So one Devastator shooting a missile launcher has a pretty good chance at killing a plague bearer. And I happen to know that this plague bearer is only -1 to hit. Here, for example, we could add another -1 to hit, which doesn't really significantly change his chance of killing him. Select targets. So let's also add the other. Here under demons, I have a special plague bearer that's already set up to be -2 to hit. So with these -2 to hit, it's a lot. You're less likely to actually kill that one plague bearer with him. When it actually is set to count dead models, you see that it's actually not very productive, but the most likely outcome is that you only do 1 wound out of 2,000 rolls. Okay, so when you're adding an attacking unit, the weapons that you added in the add weapon profile section show up here as weapons that you can add. So that's why it's important to add your weapons first. And some weapons allow you to reroll wounds like lightning claws. So if you've done a lot of work, what's nice is that I am saving the work you do locally. So if you refresh, you still have your Devastator. You still have like the Chaplain Dreadnought I added earlier. However, if you did something like where you cleared your local, well, let's say you're in Firefox, you go to your preferences and you go to clear data. That would delete everything you've done, which maybe you need that if you put your data in a weird spot. But you can go here to save data, and there's 3 fields that are important. You have your targets that you've made that are custom, you have your weapon profiles you made that are custom, and you have your attacker profiles that are custom. So you would take each one. So if I go select targets, it copies all that. Do Command C to copy it again. I thought I already had Sublime open. and you can just paste that. You can save that as a text thing. Let's copy the weapons. And let's copy the attacker profiles. Now, maybe you save this and email it to yourself. Maybe you go to like paste bin. Here in paste bin, you can just post it, create new. And this way you could reference it later. Here, if you get into a funky place where you want to clear your stuff, I have included a feature that lets you delete your data. It's going to say, are you sure you want to delete your target data? To cancel. In fact, let's go ahead and say, okay. It refreshes automatically because the deletion doesn't really take place until it reloads with this data gone. Clear attacker data. Clear weapon profile data. So you can see all the data is gone. And if you go to select targets, you don't have your customs. You select attacking units, you don't have your customs. You can look at the defaults, but so if we want to load the data, you have the target data, you have the weapon profile, you have the attacker data. There's some security, not to say security, but I prevent you from loading non-JSON. That is not valid JSON, you bum. It's important. So I would go back and get my targets. This one was the targets with the plague bearers. Process that. Targets was updated. Let's get our weapon profiles. All right, come on, paste bin. So if you do this out of order, if you post your weapon profiles, let's say, and you don't post your attackers, or you post your weapon data in your attacker data field, I don't know. It could break, the website could refuse to load, something like that. That's a case where you just go to your preferences, you delete you clear your data, and it'll load normally again. Process attacker data. So it's important that you not load attacker data before you load weapon profile data, because the attacker data references the weapon profile data, and if you have, Eldar weapon profiles, but you have Chaos Space Marine attacker data, it's going to be messed up. At best, you have like Chaos Space Marines shooting shurikens, and at worst, the website doesn't load. Again, you go to preferences and you clear your data. All right, so after saving this, you actually have to reload the app with the updated data. And boom, there's that stuff. Here's the plague bearers, the guardians, and you're ready to go again. So over time, I'll be adding, I'll be separating it out so the Space Marine stuff isn't default, so that you can choose, Tyranids, Gene Stealer Cult, special rules instead of just having the Space Marine stuff all the time. However, some of this, hopefully it counts, stuff like reroll wounds of 1 shows up in a lot of codexes. Hopefully this accounts for that. And eventually, let's see, where's my attacking units? Chaplain. Get a few of these. Eventually I'll have stuff like when you choose your targets. Let me clear out this. Let's say you're looking at your KillScale dashboard here. If you inspect element, this is a little bit of a cheat code for the present while I am working on this. Here we go, display none, this one. Delete that. You can show debugger information. And this is the stuff that you've input that is custom. And eventually I would have something like, if you have plague bears selected as a target, you could have a checkbox that says plague bears are in cover. And then down here where it says infiltrators, it would say chapter master rerolls checkbox, reroll wounds of 1 checkbox. Right now that is being treated globally here under show options. However, in time, that's another feature that'll be added. And eventually this saving data and loading data will be managed, in a more automated process maybe. But I'm hoping that this empowers people to, they could work together, for example, to load the whole 1,000 suns into here and maybe have the entire Imperial Guard as targets. And maybe you can share it someplace better than just Pastebin. Maybe. All right, thank you. That was KillScale.